I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to both meet and speak with Mark Kahn. Mark, thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to have this chance to meet and speak with you. How are you feeling?
I'm great. It's a real pleasure to meet you, Todd, and thanks so much for inviting me onto your podcast. I've listened to some of your interviews, and only with people that I actually know or know of on on the yoga scene, and I really enjoyed them. So it's a real pleasure to be here. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much. Can you tell me where you're located right now?
I'm actually in Milan at the moment, so I'm largely based here. I do some classes outside of the city as well, but mostly based here. Um,
And are you originally from the UK?
yeah, I'm actually from Liverpool in the UK. I don't know whether you know that city, but I from there I moved down to London for education and stayed there for forever. And
Nice.
found yoga in London as well. So that's kind of where I started to practice yoga many years ago. So
What is your educational background?
my educational background is in the arts. So I studied fine art at art school, and that led into more of a career in graphic design in the end to make a living, which is what I continue to do and still do. I do all of my promotional work for my yoga is done by myself. So any advertising or any posts I need to do for social media, I do those. So I still enjoy doing this. I still enjoy working with graphic design, and I also wrote a book some years ago, and I was responsible for the layout of the actual book as well. So I'm still involved in it at a distance, but I enjoy it still.
Wonderful. Can you tell me what the title of the book is?
It's called The Yoga Tutor. Um, it's part of a series of books which were published back in, I think it was 2013. And this one was specifically for yoga. I think there was another one for Pilates, and I can't remember what else, but they asked me to create this book, which which was a real pleasure and a real honor, at that stage in my yoga career, let's say. So yeah,
Did you
and I still
say
use it for teacher trainings as well. If I do teacher trainings, then I recommend the book because it's basically a teacher's training manual. It has all of the all of the content that is required to at least satisfy a 200-hour certification. So
nice? Did you say it was called Yoga for Tutor?
called
Tutor?
the yoga tutor,
The Yoga Tutor.
Tutor. Yeah, it
Nice.
was translated. Yeah, so it's available in many languages, even in Japanese, which I'm very proud of because I love the typography. It looks really cool.
I
So,
agree. I
yeah.
agree. That would be so cool to write, publish a book, and then have be able to see it written in multiple language. Was it a large publisher? Is that how that eventuated, where the publishing
Yes,
company is broad enough?
it's an international publisher because it was also and still is published in the US. Um, and it happened around the time when I was traveling to New York a lot. So Dharma Mitra Sri Dharma very kindly wrote the foreword for the book. So he, when you open the book up, there's a beautiful foreword from him, which I'm very proud of. And a lot of the knowledge that's in the book is, directly comes from his teachings. Uh,
Wonderful.
so
Very
it's
nice. What type of connection do you feel yoga and fine art has?
well, this is a nice question because when I finally stopped making art and stopped working as a graphic designer, I kind of reached a point where I'd lost my passion for that kind of creativity, that creative route. And I felt like yoga gave me the opportunity to find another way of expressing myself in a creative way with sequencing. So I feel I feel like when I'm putting a class together, that's the creative side of me. That's the artistic side of me still being expressed. So I never feel like I left it behind altogether. And more recently, over the past couple of years, I started to take yoga poses, like isolated yoga pose that I'd shot of myself, and then I'd create some moving graphics, almost kaleidoscopic graphics, which I posted on my Instagram page, which are available for people to see. But basically, it's just one position, which I've using some software and playing with color as well.
Yeah.
I've been able to create these animations, which I feel really quite proud of because it's, it did um, it meant a return to another type of creativity or the old creativity. So I'm
Very
happy with that.
cool. I have checked those out. Your Instagram handle is at Markkan Yoga, Markkan Yoga. And
That's right.
I saw those and I didn't realize your art background. And right when I saw one of the images that you're speaking of, I thought, well, how did he do that? That's really cool. Yeah, so it makes sense that you have this art background to be able to take the yoga aspect and then blend it and marry it together like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think yoga poses, there's a very strong aesthetic side to them. And I feel like when you when you do a yoga pose, when you express a yoga pose, if you do it, reasonably well, I try my best, then it's sometimes it's an art form in itself. So I like that approach. I can when I do shoot myself doing yoga poses, I quite kind of like to do my best and
Yeah,
try to
that's
get it as accurate as possible. But it's never going to be. I don't know what perfection is in an asana, but I simply do my best, and that's all. We can expect really.
I hear you. I agree. How has your understanding of yoga practice evolved from, it sounds to me, you said you went from Liverpool to London and during your educational process, you discovered yoga. Can you relate a little bit or relay a little bit about what your first impression was upon meeting yoga?
Well, my very first impression was when I was probably 5 years old on TV in Liverpool. There used to be a yoga program, and with my sisters and brothers, we would try and do some of the yoga poses together and sit with our legs crossed and do the mudra and say oms. But that happened then, and then yoga never happened in my life until probably almost 30 years later. So I never did any, apart from school, some obligatory gymnastics. I never did any exercise in my 20s and early 30s. I think around that time there was a gym culture, people to go to the gym and work out and get biceps and triceps. And I'd kind of want to be part of that culture, but I'd do it for about 4 weeks and I'd just give up because I just never had the discipline or the desire, So I didn't do exercise. I did just a little bit of swimming, and yoga didn't happen until I got into my 30s, and I'd started working for as a company called BBC, the corporation.
Oh,
I
yeah.
started to work there in the publishing department,
Wow.
book design, and uh, and lots of the girls were practicing yoga, and I think lots of celebrities had begun practicing yoga, so it was quite fashionable. And somebody recommended that I have a go. There was a yoga studio near where I lived, so I just took myself along. I went alone one evening, and the class was very, very simple, but it was a really, really beautiful experience just to be able to be in a room full of, not full of people, there weren't many people there, but a very quiet, tranquil room, and maybe do about 6 or 7 poses. I couldn't do much, to be honest with you. I wasn't flexible at the time. So, but it just had an effect on me. And so I went back again. I started to go there just regularly once a week on my own. And then, um, you know, I think I told one of my close friends that I'd started to do some yoga, and he recommended that I try a yoga class at his gym, which was not too far from, also not too far from where I lived. So I took myself along to that, and it kind of grew from there, really. It at the time it wasn't a strong, let's say, spiritual encounter. It didn't feel like that at the time. So it was just more curiosity. Uh, I didn't know what I was doing. I just felt some attraction towards it. Something was pulling me towards it, but I just went along with it, and it kind of grew from there. And at that point, from that point, I started to experiment with lots of different yoga styles, like Ashtanga yoga, Bikram yoga, Jiva Mukti yoga. I mean, you know all of these practices, Hatha flow, Shivananda yoga. So I was a little bit of I became a bit of a yoga junkie, trying so many different things. And I went to New York. That's how I discovered Bikram yoga. A friend had recommended I try Bikram or hot yoga when I was in New York, and I was supposed to be out sightseeing, and I bought this pass to go to the Bikram Yoga Center every day for, I think it was a 10-day offer. And I couldn't keep away from it. So it really did start to just, you know, become a big part of my life quite quickly. Within two years, it just grew.
That's so cool. What if you were in New York practicing Bikram? I'm guessing that at some point that is where when you met Dharma Mitra. How did that evolution come into focus?
Well, in fact, that didn't happen when I was in New York. That happened. My first encounter with Dharma Mitra was through his book. The 608 Yoga Poses, a small black book.
Yes, I
And
love
I
it.
was, I'd done Bikram yoga in London as well. When I came back from New York, I found this Bikram Yoga Center in London, not far from where I was working at the BBC. And I started to go there. And one day I'd gone with a friend, and I was waiting for him to finish in the dressing room. So they had a really nice bookshop, and I saw this small black book, and I thought, wow, that's really cool design. I picked it up and I started to thumb through it, and there were these black and white images, no text, just these beautiful black and white images of this, and there were old photographs. So I looked at the book and I thought, oh, it's a shame he's not still alive, because it looks like he'd have been good to practice with. Because I genuinely thought, this Dharma Mitra guy was dead, looking at the book and looking at the quality of the photos. And then not long after that, I'd gone along to do some Ashtanga yoga, and my teacher there had said that Dharma Mitra was coming to London for the first time. So that was my first meeting with him. And that was 2005 that I discovered him through his book. And then I started to inquire more about him. And then 2006, in the February, he came to London for the first, I think it was the first ever time. I've never really bothered to check that, but I think it was. And uh, and that was an amazing experience for me, largely because in 2005 I'd lost my brother very suddenly, and it was a very difficult period for me, and I was struggling to come to terms with his death, but also I didn't know how to grieve properly, because I'd kind of stopped following any faith, any religious faith that I had. So I kind of grew up in a Catholic environment, and had all of my beliefs, and I used to, do my prayers and stuff. And then, over the years, I kind of was questioning everything, and by that point, and then after the death of my brother, I was like lost. I was just totally lost. Didn't know what to believe, who to believe in, and certainly wasn't believing in the idea of a God. And then I went along to Dharma's first talk in London, and and it was like a little bit of an epiphany because all of the yoga classes I'd been to in London up until that point, and in New York, um, nobody had ever really talked about, you know, or used the word God. People talk about, the higher consciousness or the divine or Brahman, but nobody actually used the word God during any spiritual talk. And Dharma was the first, and it kind of somehow reignited my belief. Really, it was very soothing the way he was talking as well, and I suddenly kind of felt like I'd come home in some kind of way. And and it's remained like that since. And that I thank Dharma for, because um yeah, it's still there with me. I still have it's not, I don't follow a faith, but I follow this concept of God, rather than just thinking about divine consciousness, or the higher energy. I like this concept of God, a Godhead. And this, I find, I don't know, it kind of makes me feel like safer somehow on my path.
I love
I don't know
hearing that.
whether that makes sense.
It does, Mark. I love hearing that because I had a unique or an interesting experience too the first time that I had practiced with Dharma, and he had done a similar thing using the word God, and the way that he had used it, I he was quoting Bhagavad Gita, and I didn't realize that. And so when he was saying I am God in the words of Krishna, I it threw me for a little bit of a loop because I was kind of like, whoa, whoa, what's going on right now? Like,
Hmm.
what,
Hmm.
what,
Hmm.
what? But once I then realized later what had happened, it just gave me a laugh that um, it also had. I just love those little impacts where our consciousness is challenged and or opened, and and
Hmm.
and that was a
Hmm.
moment for me too. I love hearing your take on that as well. That where you had a bit of clarity in the moment of like, oh wait, I can integrate this into my life and have it be authentic.
Yes, well, it felt like it was almost like it was, everything was going to be okay again. The
Mm,
pain.
yeah,
I felt like the pain would start to subside because somebody could, there was somebody I could either pray to, or, who could, it's hard to explain. It's like the child in me, the young boy who used to do the prayers and everything, that re-emerged again. And I just felt like I was kind of in safe hands. I don't know how else to describe it. Um, and, as I say, it's been like that since. And,
that's
but
really cool.
I love Dharma's. He references the Gita a lot. I have this book. This is his mini version of the Gita. It's a beautiful book, and it's without any commentary. This one, so it's just verse on verse, and it's a really beautiful book because you can just flick it open and find your favorite quotes. So I look at this a lot, but there's a lot of reference to the Lord as well, and I enjoy that. It's good for me anyway.
That's cool, Mark. Being that you appreciate art, you have grown up with Catholicism, you've been exposed to some of the amazing ideas that come from the continent of India in history. Being in Milan, now that you live in Milan, and I've never been to Milan, but my experience of traveling through Rome and Tuscany and being able to see some of the churches and history in Italy, I'm curious what your feeling is when you walk into, say, a Catholic church now in Italy. Like, I mean, I just love going to the churches to study the architecture, to see the stained glass, to just like just the beauty of them in terms
Mhm,
of like
mhm.
that someone could put that together. I'm curious, how do you visit that often now, or
Always, yes. I absolutely love it. I'm fascinated by the, I guess the work, the design, the dedication that went into building these churches. And when you go into the interiors and you see the incredible frescoes. And I was in Assisi, in towards the south, or in Umbria, I think it is, maybe 2 years ago. So I went to the chapel of Saint Francis, and it's one of those places where you walk in there and you actually you feel like when you're witnessing what you see from an interior point of view, and the frescoes on the walls and the way the church is decorated, you think, how can you deny the existence of God when you marvel at the beauty of these spaces, but also the power within these spaces. They're very powerful. Um, so I really enjoy going to churches. Um, there's some incredible places in Rome, and there's one in particular that I love to go to every time I go to Rome. I always go in there. I light candles for my family, for the living, for people who I love, keeping them well. So I do all of that. I don't know what what it might bring, but I just hope that it keeps my family safe and well. And uh, so yeah, I'm kind of still have all of those traditions in me.
yeah,
So
I hear
I
you. I hear you. I,
it's a bit
I,
old. I'm a bit old actually. So
I,
it's what more older generations tend to do. So
I hear you. Well, I must be getting old too because I'm starting to, have my cycle of return as well.
uh-huh. Good, good.
But
Do you
but
have that over there? In where you are in Florida? You have many churches, or
there are. I don't think. Well, that's a really good question. I guess I was gonna say I don't think that they come anywhere close to what Italy has
mm,
in relation to just the whole picture. Like you
mm,
said, the beauty and the history and the thought of somebody up on a scaffolding, however many hundreds of years ago, like just painstakingly every little detail. I feel like we do have really beautiful spaces here, but I think what Italy has is just worth. It's like a bucket list trip.
yeah,
I think to actually go and view that. So, but I guess when you say, do you have that here? I would say, yeah, I think that, when you were talking about going in and feeling the power of the space, I feel like I often wonder, is the power because of the people, the experience that people have had in the space? And then is that the power of the actual to visually see and feel something that pulls up all these ideas, like you said, from childhood, like the weaving of mythology and not to just diminish it to a mythology, but to say the mythology that these churches and spaces hold. I think it has that kind of sitting in front of a beautiful painting experience. So I do believe we have that, but I also would have to go on a limb and say Italy just takes the cake. you know
I think it probably does. Yeah, it really does, because they're all in such close proximity to each other as well. And you're thinking, where did they get the money from for all of this? And
Oh,
how many people are there that were there that would come and come to church? But it's a magical. Rome is a magical place, so it's a very special place. And Milan has really beautiful churches as well. Incredible frescoes. But I love to do it just to go and have some quiet time and just you know just feel beautiful energy around me.
Yeah.
Even if it's tourists in there, they're all going there because they have the same fascination. So, I don't feel like they're disturbing my peace because I'm just the same as them. So, I just feel like everybody is respectful. And I like that. If I'm sat there and just watching people looking up at ceilings or taking pictures, it's still a beautiful thing to observe because, people still value these spaces
Yes.
and this energy. So I enjoy it.
That's cool. Do you teach your yoga classes in the Italian language?
No, I'm really naughty. Uh, what I mix it, if I have to, if I know somebody that doesn't speak good English, even though they say they do, it's obvious when they're looking at their neighbor when you tell them to raise their left leg and they're raising their right leg. But I do mix it. So if I can see someone's not understanding, then I will introduce Italian. But the reason why I don't teach a whole lesson in Italian is that I just feel like it loses the fluidity and loses the flow. Um, and it's like when you're teaching, it's almost like you're reading. You can be reading a poem or you can singing a song. It just it just flows like that, and the timing as well. And for me, I don't like to run over in terms of like the length of the class. Everything's I'm become a little bit precise in some ways, and I find that doing it in English, it keeps my timing good, and it keeps the pace good. So I don't know. It just feels obviously it feels more natural for me to say it in English. So and also, Italians tend to enjoy this international side of things. So they like, well, apparently they like lessons in English because they like a little, to test their own knowledge a little bit more.
That's
So
cool. That makes sense. Are
mm.
but do you speak Italian? It sounds like you do.
I get by,
Getting there? Yeah.
when if I go to the shops or if I have to make a call to the government office, then I'm understood and I understand them now. It wasn't like that at the beginning, but um, and I have friends who don't speak any English, so I guess I do, but I wouldn't boast that because somebody would come along and you know bewilder me with their version, their beautiful fluent Italian and overwhelm me. But yeah, I guess I do. I shouldn't be too modest because I manage, I'm on a teacher training program at the moment, and all of the students are Italian. And uh, apart from my lessons, everything's in Italian, and I understand the whole program. So give
That's
or take
cool.
some things, but it's not a problem. So, and I enjoy. It's a beautiful language, it's a beautiful culture, and what I would say about Italians, they're very reverent to yoga practice as well. It's not just physical exercise. The students that I know, they do take they take the practices seriously. They like to do pranayama meditation, and they like to do the mantras. So I don't know whether you know the mantra for purification that we chant at the beginning of a lesson with Dharma yoga. So they all enjoy this. And I also teach every morning during the week. I teach Surya Namaskar Vinyasa. So it's like a sun salutation. And the first round of Surya Namaskar, there's a mantra for each of the positions. In Sanskrit. So I like to chant that for each of the movements, and they all like to follow that as well. So it's it's nice, they do appreciate and respect traditions. So
That's cool. When you made mention that delivering a yoga class is almost like either reading a poem or singing a song, I love that idea. And like you mentioned, getting into that flow of feeling like you're delivering something that is poetic, so to speak. How do you convey that to a new teacher trainer do you have a way of, other than just delivering it yourself and figuring everybody's capabilities and what they'll pick up on will be unique for each individual. And so do you try to just lead by example, or is there a teaching technique that you employ to help teacher trainers understand how enjoyable it can be to not just focus on the content, but also to focus on the cadence, the rhythm, and being able to read the room and know what the appropriate cadence and rhythm could be?
Well, I find that really important. What I would say is I do know some teachers who, they when they run teacher training programs, they want the students to say things the way they say them, um, and say and teach the class according to how they would teach. It's almost like a blueprint, so it becomes this particular method. That's not how I would encourage someone to teach. No, I will observe people. What I like to do is get people off the mat so that they're not just glued to their mat and demonstrating every position, because when they're doing that, they're not really observing what the student, the practitioners are doing. So I try to encourage people, if they need to demonstrate, maybe just demonstrate one side and then move around the room and move your energy around each of the individuals, so you're imparting something, rather than just a verbal instruction. So you're putting your own energy around that. But I like people to find their own voice. I think it has to be that kind of authenticity for me, because I don't, I when I'm teaching, let's say Dharma Mitra, I can still hear how he says things, from when I used to be in New York a lot. Um, I can still hear his voice and some of his gestures. And they seem to come, the way he might sort of like just hold his hands sometimes. And you find yourself doing it. But it's kind of, it's not copying. It's just, I don't know, incorporating a little bit of him into your teaching practice. So I do sometimes hear his voice, when I'll say I'll break the pose, which is something he would say when you get to the end of a position. He wants to take you out of the position. He would say, break the pose. Um, I still use that. So I think there are some things that you can incorporate from the teacher, or from a training program, let's say, but I wouldn't want there to be, a kind of a blueprint for what you should say, how you should say, as you said, the different cadences and stuff like that. I think for me, I think people should have their own voice. And, because people, like some of the people I'm teaching now, they've got beautiful energy. And if they were going to try and teach like Mark can, they would lose that, because I can be in a yoga class. I'm not a soft, warm, embracing teacher. That doesn't seem to be me, you know. Um, I feel compassionate, but sometimes it doesn't come across in a compassionate way, because I'll bark orders in some, not in an aggressive way, but I'll say, do it like this. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know how to describe myself, but I definitely don't think people would say, oh, he's this really soft, you know, warm teacher, because it's not true. And and some people are naturally inclined to teach like that, and it's beautiful. And I wouldn't
Mm.
want to take that away from them. I think, you know, find your voice, but don't over egg it, in the sense that, don't make it too flowery with your words, because maybe if that suits you, but if I'm observing you when you're on the teacher training program, I'm trying to, um, you can save that for when you leave the program. You can say what you want, do what you want, and teach what you want. But while we're here together, I would prefer you to kind of, not pad it out with too much, let's say, flowery stuff. If that makes sense.
It does. I
Yeah.
get that. I know what you mean.
Mm.
from watching or seeing your Instagram posts, you have a strong, to me, it appears that you have a strong practice, that you've connected with some of these more challenging postures. And I'm curious, you don't have to share your age, but you made mention, you said, I'm getting older. And so
Yeah.
I'm really curious to hear how you're navigating sensation in the body and
Mm.
um, depth in your asana practice. And
I will happily share that with you. So this
ex-
year I'll be 62. Yeah. So I'm not young, and I'm kind of very not proud of that, but I just feel very thankful for the fact that I am at this stage in my life and I'm still um, enjoying the asana practice that I have. So, um, how do I navigate? I tell you what's happened over the years, and I also will say that I think I think COVID had an effect as well. This isolation from people. Um, I've softened my practice over the last couple of years. It could be the aging process. I don't know how. I never look into the science of how the body ages once you get, into your late 50s or early 60s. I don't know what. I don't want to know about that too much as long as I feel okay. But um, there are some things that don't really interest me the way they used to, some transitions, some lifts, stuff like this. It's kind of, I leave that for the younger people. I've experienced it. I've been through the process, I've been through the mental process as well as the physical process. And so I'm happy to teach these things to people, but I don't have to put that into my daily practice. Still have a strong daily practice, which I enjoy, but some of the big lifts and stuff that I used to do, I kind of doesn't really do it for me as much as it used to. I don't know what used to, I mean, the mind used to be an incredible journey, physically and mentally when you can, you know, control your body in the way that I used to be able to. Uh, but I don't feel like it's necessary for me to keep maintaining that anymore. And I think I keep everything at a reasonably okay level. And that's kind of enough because I feel like as I've got older, I feel like the physical side is more, it is maintenance in terms of like keeping me healthy, keeping the body in good condition. But for more mental stuff and to go deeper into my own consciousness, I prefer to sit and work with my meditation practice and pray. So that's kind of where I am. But of course, I enjoy teaching asana as well. I think it's the beauty. It's a wonderful sort of gateway into the deeper practices. Let's say if you want there to be deeper practices, um, but it's uh, it's still important to me to practice it myself and to teach it. But I like to keep time aside for sitting and breathing and
yes, yes.
stuff and
Great answer.
writing.
That's a great answer, Mark. I feel like that's a very holistic response that is very encouraging and and content. Like I feel a sense of contentment from you, which is very
Mm.
refreshing. That's a really nice place to land. I love that you brought up. Let's leave that for the younger folks. That's really, you know what I mean? Like, I,
That
I,
really is
I
going
really
my
enjoyed this. This was I had such a great time, and I'm so excited to see other people getting the same sort of joy that I did. And I'm perfectly okay right now to be where I am and seeing that sort of like progression in the stages. I think that's really I don't know that we could do it any other way than that. Like I don't know that yoga would push us into any other way of appreciating life. Because I mean, I don't know, it's so incredible, isn't it? I mean, I can't stop being amazed
Well,
at what this yoga practice can really bring in the way that the personal development piece, as that improves, the yoga improves, and as the yoga, but improvement not in the realm of physical posturing and performance, but yoga in the sense of
mm,
just like the yoga keeps improving. And I like the way that you said, like, I like to sit, like that's a really amazing part of the yoga practice when you get to that point where like, I am just so happy to sit right here, right now. And like, I just
well,
think
I
I
tell
mean,
you,
yeah,
I still do things with my asana practice that I wasn't doing. I mean, still achieving new things with asana, believe it or not. I think my best asana practice um, happened throughout my 50s. When I was in my 50s, I achieved things which I never imagined would happen. And it's been like an incredible journey, and it still is. I mean, over the past month or so, I started to work with positions that I hadn't tried before, and I was surprised that that I can manage it. So, it's incredible. It fascinates me still, but I don't need to do all of it. I can just play around with things, that keep me in more of a comfort zone. I don't take myself too much out of my comfort zone anymore. I know what I can do without injuring myself. And I'm more conscious of taking care of my body when I do asana now. I probably used to take a few more risks before, whereas I won't do that now.
I hear you.
So, you know, you have to be, if you're out of action, it's not a good example that you're setting for your student if you get injured doing poses, but also, um, I've always been the kind of teacher who doesn't like to just stand there and tell the students what to do and direct them through, a class without doing anything. I think I like to, you know, show people some things that, if especially if it's a difficult pose, like try to encourage them into give them some good advice about how to move into a position safely. So I do demonstrate, but I don't do the whole lesson. I don't have a mat down normally when I'm teaching. I'm just walking around the room, and or I'll stand next to somebody and show them something. So that's kind of how I work.
Great point. Is there a philosophical either book or viewpoint that you've come across recently? You've held up the Bhagavad Gita, so I obviously you're a fan of that particular text. Is there a philosophy or book that you've come across recently that gave you that aha moment again? Because I mean, I personally I keep having the aha moment. I can pick up a book or I can pick up I can pick up the Bhagavad Gita again and go, oh wow,
Hmm.
wow, who would have thought that was going to impact me like this today? So have you come across anything this week that gave you, or this month or recently, that gave you the aha moment again within the realm of the grand world of yoga philosophy?
Well, not so much, if I'm being honest with you, not so much yoga philosophy. Um, I don't know whether you've heard of, I think you probably have heard of Joe Dispenza.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love his approach to meditation and, um, the science behind everything, the research that he puts behind everything to do with meditation and consciousness and, energy. I find that really interesting instead of reading books just on spirituality, because there's something tangible that well, or kind of tangible when you're thinking about energy and atoms. But I find his work really interesting. And so he's got a couple of good books, which is what the recent one was Becoming Supernatural. And then
Yes.
he's also had another book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I really enjoy listening to them on audio, but reading them as well. So I have them on Kindle and I listen to the audio versions. And it always gives me something new to think about. And that's really interesting because I think I'm not really going to get spiritual. I haven't come across a book which is apart from the Gita. And I love I tell you who else's books I love is Iyengar's books. I find him, if let's say Dharma Mitra's like my guru, a living guru now through for asana and other practices, pranayama. With Iyengar, his wisdom, the books that he wrote have just been incredible sources of knowledge for pranayama, for Yoga Sutra. Um, so I really like his books, and I still pick up the books and I quote the books on teacher training. But as far as like a living person who's making some impact in the world about consciousness, about energy, and uh, and using meditation as a vehicle through which we can begin to understand consciousness and energy. I think Joe Dispenza is doing quite or writing about quite remarkable things. So forgive me if that's not directly related to yoga, but he also uses the energy centers. He in his meditations. I don't know whether you've heard any of his meditations, but he talks about the chakra system as well. And I find him his I you know his is the science is really interesting, and there's a really nice parallel there with Dharma Mitra, because he loves science as well. And he used to talk on the teacher trainings about antennas, how we,
Yeah.
using,
Yeah.
like you make these analogies about mobile phones having their own signals. And he was kind of talking about, in some ways, about the quantum field, or these other fields, that we can communicate through. So I don't feel like, I certainly don't feel like Joe Dispenza and people like him are very far away from the path that we're on through yoga. I mean, he also talks about yoga a lot.
I
I
think you're
remember.
right. I think you're right. That's a great answer. I have read both of the books that you made mention of, Becoming Supernatural and Breaking the Habit of Becoming Yourself. I found great value in them, especially when I was going through a real tough kind of pain pattern. One of the techniques that I learned from him that I really feel like I got great benefit from was sort of the visualization or imagination of seeing myself like what. So I would take a walk, and if I was feeling pain in my body, I would try to imagine seeing myself walking into my future self of not having pain in my body. And even though I conceptually couldn't quite really believe it at the time, because when pain is so real, you think, how am I going to break this? How am I going to, how is this pattern going to change? But just giving me that kind of future idea that it can, and then trying to visualize that. I don't know. I really connected with him when I was going through a tough time. I agree with you. I feel like, his work is amazing. And then the more that I keep reading other people's works that are around the quantum field or quantum physics field, I feel like, well, I kind of go back to, wow, he's really brilliant in the way that he's presenting it in such a tangible, easy to digest
Mm,
form for our current, who we are now in this modern era. Yeah.
mm. And his passion for what he does. I think it's he's not necessarily just monetizing what he does. I mean, he does, which is good luck to him. But it's the fact that he puts so much back into research, to try to validate his claims. Well, he does validate his claims through his research, and that's what I love. So that's kind of another source. I listen to a lot of, I like YouTube's a real amazing
Isn't it?
resource
Yeah.
for knowledge.
Can you
So
even believe it, Mark? I mean, like, when we think back to our childhood, can you even believe?
it's incredible. Yeah. If I want, Well, that coupled with ChatGPT as
Oh,
well.
yes.
You know, yeah, where was all of that when we were growing up? But you know, it's fascinating. You know, if I have any if I need any information now, then it's you know, often it will be through ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
it's very, very good.
It's pretty
Um,
exciting. I agree.
I know, worryingly good because I mean, you just feel like there is somebody on the other side talking to you, responding to you, and stuff. So, but yeah,
Yeah, we're just gonna have to roll with it at this point, I think. And
yes, you know, I think you know, use it to your advantage, and but don't. I think you you kind of have to still think for yourself, really, instead
yeah,
of just relying on it for everything. So I just use it for various things, you know.
good point, Mark. And I'm really curious. Can you tell me a little bit about what your current project of setting up the website that you're working on, what sort of track you're going down with its creation?
Okay, yes, thank you for asking that. And I'm not didn't mention this before to try and promote this, but you know, as we were talking about how you know through asana now, I don't really feel like I need to be doing everything, or you know, I leave stuff to the younger people to do. I feel like I've reached a point in my teaching where I want to help people who are older. So, you know, I'm developing this program, this website, which commercially I've called it 50 plus, you know, and I've created a website or a platform where people who are, you know, getting on a bit more mature, can go to if they've never practiced yoga before, or if they already have practiced yoga for some years but want to, you know, continue with their yoga practice. I feel like sometimes at the moment, I may be wrong because I'm not out there in lots of yoga schools and I don't really keep track of what's going on in the whole global community, but I do feel like, you know, with the let's not say trends, but let's use a word like trends to describe what's going on with yoga. It can often leave people who are a little bit more mature feeling excluded. You know, when you see people balancing on their hands and doing crazy transitions, you know, and with the lots of more fashionable styles of yoga. And I won't mention any of the styles, but you know, it kind of can be targeted towards a younger audience. You know, and I'm not part of that audience myself now, being my age, but I feel like, you know, there are you know, I teach people over 50 and you know, they still you know, really enjoy practicing yoga. You know, they kind of, I don't want them to be forgotten. And I feel like I can be probably a good, not a role model, but I'm in good shape, you know, for my age. And, you know, I'm still practicing, you know, to a reasonably good level. So I should be able to help and inspire people who are wanting to become familiar with yoga at a more mature age. You know, I got into it when I was around the mid 30 mark, so I was that age. But there are people now who want to embrace yoga, you know, around the late 40s, early 50s mark, or even beyond. And you know, I just want to give them a little bit of a voice and help them. So that's the plan, is to set up this. Well, I've set up the website. I just haven't launched it because I'm kind of a little bit nervous about it for some reason. Because it's a big step,
I
you know,
hear you.
because, you know, I'm kind of in the community that I'm involved in. I'm known as this kind of teacher who teaches probably more advanced practice, and the audience is always younger. So I'm going to be shifting my teaching to an older demographic. And there's a little bit of trepidation, a bit of fear there, because I don't know whether it will work. Um, but I hope it will work because, you know, I should be an example of somebody who can, you know, you can look at and say, look, this, I've not done any other exercise in my life. I'm this in this condition because of yoga asana. And, I have knowledge as well of yoga philosophy and yoga science, which I can share with people, different breathing techniques I can share with people. I also have different meditation techniques, so they're not just confined to yoga, traditional yoga. So I'm also interested in, um, you know, Zen meditation, and I think I'd like to incorporate that into this platform, which I don't have the opportunity to do through my normal routes because most people tend to want to just do physical exercises and do asana. And I feel like as you get older, you start to question things a little bit more, and it's not about sticking your legs behind your head. It's about, exploring your own consciousness and going deeper into the levels of your own mind. And, I have that knowledge and I'm never able to share that with people. And I think I want an audience to be able to share that with. And I really enjoy pranayama and the different techniques. And I feel like maybe people who are a little bit more mature might be more receptive to that. Not that young people aren't by any means, but um, I don't know. Let's see
Well,
what happens with it.
I can identify with everything you're saying, Mark. I think you're on the right track. I
Oh,
do.
thank you.
I think you're on the right track. I had a similar, I think I'm still on the similar journey to what you're saying. I can relate 100%. And uh, when COVID happened, we had a teacher. I was always teaching the Ashtanga classes and the more challenging dynamic vinyasa flow type stuff. And then I brought somebody in to do gentle yoga that was catering more toward some of our population where we are. And when COVID happened, we had to let some teachers go just to kind of hang on to the fort type of thing and do it all ourselves. And so I thought, well, I'll teach that class. It's outside of my wheelhouse, but I'm gonna give it a shot, and I love it. I absolutely love the experience of just toning it way down, and
Mm,
I'm finding the response to be incredibly positive, and
mm,
I'm just kind of having a little chuckle at myself of like, well, who would have thought? And here I am, So
absolutely.
I think you're on the right track, man. And I
Well,
do
I think you've
think
broken
that
it.
100 everything you're saying, I'm just like, yeah, that's so cool because it's going to be successful because and I'm meeting so many young folk that I would have assumed that would only like when they come in, I'll sometimes be like, I just want to let you know this is gentle yoga. This is going to be really chill. And they're like, oh no, that's exactly what I want right now. Like I have a lot of stress going on, or I don't really want to do anything too crazy right now. I just want to relax. And I'm like, okay, great, great. And so I love that aspect too, where a surprise almost comes out of it, where you're like, there's it's really appropriate for everyone, really. And then it does open
Well,
the
you see,
angle.
the
Yeah,
thing is,
please, please.
you know, um, not everybody wants to do super strong asana. It's not for everybody, and people often say this to me. It's not for everybody. And my classes, are you still there, Todd? I think you've frozen, so perhaps have I lost you?
I'm still here. I'm still
Can you hear
here.
me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I heard all that. So maybe I froze. So that worked out perfect. All right.
Yeah, you froze a little bit, but people often say to me, what I teach isn't for everybody, and so I have a limited audience, really. I don't have, lots of people coming to my classes. I think when you're teaching more advanced asana, you know, you lose your audience, but it's kind of something that I will always been associated with, and uh, I'm quite happy to hand over the mantle now. And there's plenty of other, teachers who teach all of that, the stuff that I teach, and I just feel like I don't want to leave that behind completely. I still want to teach these lessons, but also want to concentrate on a different audience who I can relate to a little bit more as well. Don't forget, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm teaching people who are 20 years younger than me most of the time, and I think it would be nice for me to mix with uh, my own demographic, perhaps.
Yes.
So let's see, you know.
That's
So,
awesome, Mark. That's cool. I really enjoyed this. What a nice surprise. I mean, thank you, Andrew, for introducing the two. Thank you for introducing us. And I'm just real grateful for this opportunity, Mark. And yeah, I really appreciate you being open and just sharing your experiences that you've had throughout life. Is there anything you would like to close with, or any final thoughts or closing remarks that you would like to add to perhaps inspire and or encourage us to still feel motivated to pursue yoga practice?
well, I was on my mat this morning, um, and you know it's 1 hour. It's quite an intense lesson, and sometimes you're aware of the timing and things like this, and the next pose that you're going to be moving into, and sometimes you're not always totally present. And one of the things I had to say to myself today was, and also remind other people of, is just to be thankful that you're able to do this instead of just getting through it. Be thankful that you can, you know, have gratitude, because there will come a point when you can't do these things, you know, for whatever reason. And you know, it might be your age, you know, might be illness at some point as well. So my take from this morning is just to be really thankful that that we're able to do asana right now, uh, and and it keeps you in the present moment as well. You know, just staying present during your asana practice. We get lost so many times when we're practicing. We're thinking about what the next pose might be, or what's going to happen after the class, or you know, or if you're teaching it, you're timing everything, various things. Or if you're working on Zoom, whether the sound's going to drop out or whatever. So I think be show gratitude during your practice, and yeah, and just be thankful and be present. That's all I can say, and that's you know, we're always learning lessons. You see, Todd. You know, there's always different sort of like shifts in our awareness that happen when we're living, but also during the asana practice. But today was all about just be thankful. You know, it all right. It might be a tough pose, but be thankful that you're able to do it, because you know, a year or so down the line, or 2 years, I used to watch Dharma Mitra when I first knew him, and he wasn't doing advanced asana the way you'd see him doing on his yoga, his 908 yoga poses. And I used to think, oh, why doesn't he do those things anymore? You know, because I used to think at the time, I would never let that go if I had that. But, you know, I've got to his stage in life, the stage that he was then. I'm now there, and now I understand, you know, how it is, how how the mind, you know, what we go through. And, you know, the poses aren't everything. But, you know, for many people, it's a beautiful practice. Asana is an art form in itself, and as we talked about earlier. And so just enjoy it for as long as you can. But, you know, you have to let go as well. You don't own
Mm.
the poses, as Dharma used to say, you know, they're not yours. So just, you know, enjoy them while you can, and then bid farewell when you have to. So
Oh, well said, Mark. Thank you so much.
my pleasure,
I'm
my
very
pleasure.
grateful and thankful for this opportunity, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I'm thankful to Andrew for introducing us. He's a very, very dear friend, and his uh, lovely wife, Pam. So we're going to be doing a retreat together, the three of us, in England, in
Oh,
this
wow.
Wales, which is,
Wow. In Wales? In
yeah,
Wales? Oh
yes.
man.
Andrew's Welsh. Andrew's Welsh.
I know.
Yeah.
When is that?
That's in September. So the three of us are coming together. This is a first, and we're going to create this very beautiful Dharma yoga retreat. So, and we have, you know, the three of us, we've been really great friends for so long, but, you know, because they're over in the US and I've been here, uh, but we've always maintained a really good relationship. And finally, we've decided to do something together. It's only for a long weekend together, but I'm very excited because I love them both, and we're going to do something very special um, for our United Sangha. So that's great.
Wow. Well, for everyone listening, I can attest Pam and Andrew are just really special, sweet people. We're so grateful to have them teaching here as a class.
Mm.
And likewise, Mark, you're, very thoughtful. And I really I think I want to go. I hope I can swing it. I've never been to Wales.
Yeah.
So maybe somehow the universe will play into this and I'll make it. So that sounds incredible. And once again, Mark, thank you. And
Thank
I
you,
hopefully I
Milan.
will have an opportunity to meet you in real time and get a
Yes,
chance to practice with you.
cool. It's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure anyway. Take care.
Thank you.
Much love.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao. Bye
Ciao.
bye.